What's up, guys? Fantasy Joe back here with some more fantasy football content. Gonna bring you our Dynasty Rookie ratings today for 2021 after that NFL draft just concluded on Saturday. Gonna be going over that, so stick around for the video. If you're new to the channel, please hit that like button. The video helps out the channel a ton. So do questions and comments in the comment section down below. Any comments really help out the algorithm. And sub to stick around for more content. It's gonna be coming your way. Going to be breaking down a ton of draft content, a ton of dynasty content from the draft this week, and as well as talking redraft and all that stuff. So a lot of good stuff coming your way, so definitely hit that sub button. So yeah, dynasty rookie rankings. I'm going to start at 1, and without further ado, let's just hop right into this thing. Let's give our number 1 player, Jamar Chase. So Jamar Chase is my number 1 because of the landing spot. We saw all these players, we had to see where they are going to end up, play the beginning of their NFL career at least. And that matters a ton for fantasy football and the situation that they arrive in. So really going to be, discussing these guys and why they should be the number 1 overall pick, or why, they are where they are based on their landing spot. I also did a series talking about number 1 overall players in rookie draft. You guys should check that series out. Jamar Chase actually has a video on why he should be the number 1 overall dynasty pick, and that's a lot more in depth. Today's going to be a little bit more of a broad overview of the video, but later in the week I will be diving into, it'll get more specific as we go on different players and different things like that as we get closer to the season. But now we just got a broad overview for anyone who has a dynasty rookie draft coming up or is just curious. So yeah, Jamar Chase is at number 1 because of the landing spot. He got to reunite with Joe Burrow from LSU, where as a sophomore at 19 years old, he dominated college football, was the best receiver in college football that year, dominated the entire, scene, had over 1,800 yards, 19 touchdowns that year, I believe. It was ridiculous. And I think he just gets to go right back there. And when you take a guy at 5, doesn't matter that Tyler Boyd's there, doesn't matter that they drafted T. Higgins last year. When you draft a guy at 5, they're the one. That's how it's going to work out. Maybe it's not day 1 he gets the most targets, but very, very shortly into the season, he's going to be a target monster. He's going to be a guy who has that connection with Joe Burrow already established, and I think he's going to dominate for that reason. I would take him at number 1, too, because I think wide receivers age a lot better than running backs do in dynasty drafts. Think back to some players like Todd Gurley a few years ago. If you're drafting Todd Gurley in a dynasty draft, you were super excited about it, but now he's already at the league. And if you could have drafted some of those receivers, if you drafted Todd Gurley, you were very happy with him because of the production he gave you. But there's other players like Eddie Lacy. If you look at, there's a lot of running backs that, go out of the league very, very quickly. Devonta Freeman, these guys that have 4, 5, 6 years of being very, very good, and then they start to fall off kind of just because of the wear and tear of that position. But really with the wide receivers, those A.J. Greens, those Julio Jones types, you get to hold on to them for 10-plus years and get that fantasy domination from that spot. So that's why I would like to take wide receivers at the top of rookie drafts, just because I think I'm going to get more years out of that prime. I will take rookies, running backs if they're really good, but just as far as ideology, that's why I have Jamar Chase at 1. Number 2, I have Kyle Pitts. The reason being, Kyle Pitts is an extreme difference maker at the tight end position. I think he's going to be getting to go with Matt Ryan, I think, is a plus. I think if he'd gone to a better location, he could have eventually been my 101. I really wanted him to be my 101 if he had gone somewhere good enough. But I just think there's so many weapons there. If they end up trading Julio, that would change my opinion of this team a little bit. But I think you get that difference maker at the tight end position in Kyle Pitts, that Travis Kelce-like advantage in a year or two, where he's, Travis Kelce's been the number 1 tight end for the last 5 seasons in fantasy football every single season. And I think Kyle Pitts could be that type of player once he reaches maturity, and I think he could have double-digit touchdowns potential as a rookie as well. Okay, third up, we have DeVonta Smith. The reason I have DeVonta Smith at 3, I think, is that landing spot in Philly. Really good landing spot, getting to land with Jalen Hurts. I don't love Jalen Hurts as a passer, not because of that, but just really that receiving. There's not big targets in that room yet. Sure, they took Jalen Reagor in the first round last year, but they traded up to get DeVonta Smith this year at 10 overall. Jalen Reagor was a disappointment as a rookie. Zach Ertz potentially gone. Alshon Jeffrey is going to be gone. A lot of these receivers that they used to have are gone. So really, whoever's going to be the best is going to get that work. And when you trade up to take a guy at 10 after drafting a wide receiver in the first round in the previous year, you know that it's an issue. You know you need a dog. And that's what DeVonta Smith is. We saw him dominate college football this last season with an even better season than Jamar Chase had his sophomore year. Sure, he had a lot more volume, but he did put up some crazy stats. He's a talented player. I think he's going to put that weight on. I don't think he's going to have much trouble at the NFL level. Maybe at the beginning, but once he gets big enough, gets up to 175, 180. I don't see anybody really stopping him. At 4, a little sneak peek of who's at 5. At 4, we've got Najee Harris. Najee Harris might be a little higher on my list. I'm just a little hesitant about him. He went to a great landing spot with the Steelers. They don't have a great offensive line, but I do think they're going to lean on him in that workload aspect a lot, give him the rock, let him go to work. So that's why he's at 4. I think he'll get a lot of pass-catching work as well. He's got that big body where he can be a close to 300-carry tailback, especially when you take a guy in the first round. He has that potential for sure. So that's why he's at 4 there. Maybe a little low, but I told you guys what I was thinking earlier about as far as wide receivers, running back. And I just don't love Najee Harris as a player, to be honest with you, a ton. Maybe he'll prove me wrong on the NFL level. I hope he does. He's a guy, I think he's a great person, player I enjoyed watching a lot. I'm just worried about that top-end speed behind a poor Steelers offensive line. Not that it's bad, but I just mean he put at Alabama last year, which had the best offensive line by far in college football. He's not going to get those type of holes at the next level, and the defenders are going to be a lot better. So we'll see how he adjusts. Travis Etienne, I have at 5. He'd be a little bit higher if James Robinson wasn't there. I love Etienne long-term, though. Absolutely love him as a player. Think that Jaguars landing spot. I love that he was drafted in the first round. I love that. I do think they're going to take some of his workload away from him. They've got a solid offensive line, though. We saw what James Robinson was able to do last year, and I think he's better than James Robinson is for sure. He's just a really talented running back, Aaron Jones, Alvin Kamara-esque type player. I think he'll be utilized with that workload at the next level as well. Number 6, we got Jaylen Waddle. Basically, here we have him because we're balancing. They took him at 6, and he's a very talented and fast player. But I wouldn't take him ahead of some of those other guys. But I do think he will be heavily utilized in that offense, and he's exciting for sure. So he's kind of a take your shot if you love that speed. You could lay on that Tyreek Hill potential with Jaylen Waddle at 6. At 7, I've got Javonte Williams. Went to the Broncos. I really like him. He's another guy. Year 1 might not be fantastic, but with Melvin Gordon there. But Melvin Gordon's contract is up after this season, and then I think after that, Javonte Williams is just going to get a bunch of work. Maybe even take him ahead of Jaylen Waddle, honestly, if I had a team that was taking a year or two. Because like I said, I think he'll get so much workload after this year. Michael Carter, I have at 8, 4th round pick. Michael Carter for the place with the New York Jets running back. The reason I have him here is because there really wasn't a great running back. There's only saying Tevin Coleman, who I think is a little past his prime, but I really like Michael Carter as a player. I think he's a talented running back. Sure, he didn't get that 2nd or even 3rd round draft capital that you like to see from running backs, but a high-end 4th round pick is not bad, especially when you take a talented player, put him in a position that's devoid of talent on that team. They address their offensive line in some major ways. At left tackle, they've got Mekhi Becton, who's a great run blocker. They added Elijah Vera Tucker in the draft at left guard, who's also going to be very good at the next level, it looks like. So now they've got 2 really good players on the left side, can continue to address some stuff. I think they'll be much improved as a team this year than they were last year. And so I'd love to draft Michael Carter moving forward. I think he's a little bit of a sleeper, a guy you could get the back end of the first round that could be one of the best players, one of the best running backs in this draft, I think, because of the opportunity he could potentially have on that Jets team. At number 9, I've got Elijah Moore. We'll pull up 9 and 10. Got Elijah Moore, wide receiver from Ole Miss. Another guy who was underdrafted who went to the Jets. I love him as a player. Ran a 4.32, averaged 6 yards more per game than DeVonta Smith did in the SEC this year, averaging 149.1 yards per game. He got injured. That's why he didn't, end up with more yards than DeVonta Smith did this year. But he was very, very good for Ole Miss. And ran a 4.32 in the 40. Don't know if I mentioned that already. Just a talented player. He's fast, knows what to do, and he's going to a position like Michael Carter in that New York Jets team that is devoid of a lot of weapons. So I really like Elijah Moore moving forward. Trey Sermon, I have at 10. The reason being, I thought he was a talented running back coming into this draft. And then when you're drafted by Kyle Shanahan, as a running back especially, I really get excited. I think, and they took him, I believe, in the 3rd round. He's a guy who could do some really cool things at the next level. Runs a little angry, runs hard. Really excited to see him in that Kyle Shanahan system. 11 and 12, I've got Terrace Marshall Jr. and Rashod Bateman. Terrace Marshall Jr., I love the talent. His medicals didn't check out at the combine. That's why he fell a little bit. But assuming, he still was a 2nd-round pick, so I assume his medicals couldn't have been that bad. And he landed with the Carolina Panthers, wide receiver from LSU. 6'3", fast. Really, a tall, big receiver. and there weren't a lot in this draft. I just think he's a talented player who was overshadowed by Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson in college and is now going to get a chance to shine at the NFL level. Really like him in that landing spot as well. They've got already Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore. Now they have him. They've got a really good receiving core. They were able to draft left tackle in the draft as well. The tackle position with taking a tackle from BYU. So, yeah, excited about him. Moving on to Rashod Bateman. This might seem a little low for him. There's a lot of guys that ranked ahead of him. He was taken in the first round. But just when you have that Lamar Jackson-sized passing volume and then you add in the inaccuracies and the other receivers there, I'm just not super excited about him long-term dynasty value as a rookie. All right, I'm going to show the rest of the guys, and we'll go through them quickly here. Okay, so at 13, I have Trevor Lawrence, the quarterback, Trey Lance at 14. We'll talk about those two. Just two quarterbacks. I think Trevor Lawrence is a safe pick because I think he'll be good at the next level. I think Trey Lance is definitely the ceiling pick, though, because he's going to have more rushing volume and probably more rushing touchdowns at the next level. And he's also in that Kyle Shanahan system on a better team. I really like Trey Lance for fantasy football. He'd be a guy I'd be drafting for sure if I had an issue at the quarterback position and I needed a solution in Dynasty. At 15, we have Rondale Moore, wide receiver, who went to the Arizona Cardinals. Athletic freak, is probably going to play the slot for them. Had, I think, 1,300 yards in the Big Ten as a rookie. Has been injury-prone since then, but an exciting player nonetheless. Amari Rodgers, I would rank him behind Kadarius Toney if Rodgers leaves and ahead of Kadarius Toney like he is currently if Rodgers stays. But I just think he's going to get, the Packers really needed weapons. And he's going to get to play that slot role that's so valuable in the Packers offense. I think he's going to be peppered with targets and be a good reception guy, especially in PPR leagues. I give him a slight bump from the get-go. Kadarius Toney, a little bit more explosive, definitely the more upside pick. The only reason I put him behind was purely quarterback tiebreaker, looking at Rodgers versus Daniel Jones. And if Daniel Jones isn't the guy this year, then there's going to be some quarterback turnover. So that was the reason. There could be quarterback turnover in Green Bay too, though. We really just don't know at this point. So, okay, at 18, I have Zach Wilson, quarterback from the New York Jets. And 19, I got Justin Fields. Thought about flip-flopping them again just because Wilson, I think, is probably the better player, better quarterback, but Justin Fields brings that rushing upside. But really, honestly, excited about both of these players. I think all these guys went to good situations. All the quarterbacks did. Good landing spots for them. So we'll see how they do. Dyami Brown at 20, wide receiver from North Carolina. I think he fell too far in the draft, and he got taken by the Washington football team, where he's going to get a chance to play, I think, right away and prove just how good a receiver he is. Average over 20 yards a reception each of the last 2 years. Talented football player who can run, is tall, fast, and I think was just underlooked coming into the draft, honestly. And he'd be a guy I would love to get in the second round of every draft that I'm in because I think I'm getting a talented wide receiver. At 21, we've got Pat Freiermuth, the tight end, who the Steelers took in the second round from Penn State. Big kid, 6'5", 258, 259, that range. Prototypical tight end, has that, big body. We'll see how the Steelers, how heavily they utilize him, but I bet they will utilize him pretty heavily because he's a tight end that's drafted in the second round. Although, it takes a while for tight ends to get along. I just mean they're going to plan on using him to the best of their capabilities, obviously. Dez Fitzpatrick, wide receiver from Tennessee. He's on this list this high because Tennessee is really devoid of weapons, and he was how they addressed it. So I'm pretty high on him. I think he is, a diamond in the rough that can be found because of there's so many lost targets in Tennessee, and he's going to have an opportunity to potentially step in and fill some of those. So he's a guy to keep an eye on. Dwayne Eskridge, the fast wide receiver for the Seattle Seahawks took. Think he could have some options as their 3 potentially, but they just signed Tyler Lockett to that long-term extension. DK Metcalf's going to be there for 2 to 3 seasons, or 2 seasons probably, because he was a second-round pick, unless they want to franchise tag him. So not a whole lot of room to break in to be, that. I think the 3 in Seattle is valuable, but it's become less valuable as they are going to that run-first approach, it sounds like, more this year. Dwayne Eskridge just talked about him. Kenny Gainwell, the running back, got taken by Philly out of Memphis. Didn't play last year, but has a lot of pass-catching ability in his game. That's where I expect him to be utilized. He's a guy I think gets a bump in PPR leagues for sure because of that pass-catching. And then Josh Palmer, receiver for the Chargers. I think I put him on this list because you get a chance to grab a quarterback who's linked up with Justin Herbert for years ahead. I'd love to do something like that. Mike Williams could be gone after a year, so I would invest in Josh Palmer. And then another guy I want to bring up is on the list, but Mac Jones. I do think Mac Jones will be good for fantasy. I think he's a guy who will get playing time before we know it. And, not good for fantasy in quotes. I think he'll be a solid NFL quarterback. He obviously doesn't run the ball a whole lot, so I don't know how good for fantasy he really will be, but I think he'll be a good, solid, NFL quarterback that will get to play. I think we'll get to see him play sooner rather than later, and we'll know whether he's got it or not, is what I'm trying to say. So, yeah, if you guys have made it to this point, you like the video, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Any questions or comments or somebody you think should be ranked higher or didn't make the list, put them in the comment section down below, and I'll respond. Until next time, peace out. See you guys. Thank you guys for supporting the